Hi, friends, and welcome. I am your hot mess of a host, Mary Hendricks from The Very Merry Life, your new mom friend that soon will feel like an old friend. Twice a week, every week, I want you to come and join me as we cover moments in motherhood, marriage, sex, and more. Some moments worth savoring, others worth surviving, all with a laugh, pep talk, or F-bomb every now and again. I want you to come as you are, but leave the sugarcoating behind because, guys, we know how sweet it already is. So what do you say? Up for picking some daisies? Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. This one is actually, it's going to be better. I'm going to say it's going to be better because Zoe, my guest, Zoe, my guest, and I actually tried recording a previous episode, and the stupid program that I use, and I don't want to say stupid because it actually is pretty darn cool, that I used to record with my guest just got so wonky that day where we were hitting like data problems. So when I think we had to log out at one point, and when we got back in, it was like a headache, and it was disaster zone. So we're going to come on. We're going to talk about the topic that we originally had wanted to talk about, but also a twist on it now. And I'm actually really excited about it because I'm sure a lot of us will probably be able to relate. So before that, Zoe, say hello.
Hello.
And we'll get into
it.
Hi. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, just kind of the sum. Busy mom of two boys, almost 5 and 3. My oldest is starting kindergarten in a few weeks, and I am so unwell about it. I'm just like going to be a mess about it.
That's Cassidy.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah.
It's really gut-wrenching.
Cassidy starting kindergarten. And then Spencer, he got into the preschool program at the elementary school. So where Cassidy's going, he got in, which I'm so excited about.
Yeah.
But it's also like kindergarten for him because he's gone all day, 5 days a week, all day, which again, I'm excited for. But I'm like, oh, we're starting early with it.
Yeah, it's those mixed emotions that we're going through, and live in North Texas and 8 a.m. here, so I'm sitting here drinking my cold coffee, but that's your typical morning here.
That's all
so,
right.
Yeah.
That's all right. Awesome. Well, when Zoe and I had talked on the previously recorded podcast, we had actually come together originally on Instagram. We had come together, and a lot of the reasons why we had connected was topics of, again, trigger warning, sorry, eating disorder. I should have said that in the first place. Eating disorders and body dysmorphia and, diet culture and things like that, that impact that it has had on so many of us, especially now that we've become moms and we've seen our bodies change again. I think we all kind of get hit again with it. Some maybe not, but I think we all kind of are riding this wave of, I'm sorry. I feel like every person at some point is going to be impacted by diet culture, whether you even know it or not. We're just impacted in some way.
Yeah, totally.
So tell us your background. I want to know your background a little bit on, I already know it, but let's tell everyone else about your background with that stuff.
Yeah, sure. So grew up, kind of like to backtrack. I grew up in North Texas in the Dallas area. We had a soap opera called Dallas, and, that really kind of captured a lot of the culture here is very, like, I want to use my words carefully because this is, I'm from here. This is my hometown. I love it, but it's very materialistic and just kind of really attached to, how you look on the outside. Right. And I kind of went through some of it in high school, and it's like, when, Mary, when you and I went through it, like, we didn't have social media. Like, we had some commercials and like influence from people in our lives and our environment, but we didn't have social media. But I still grew up with, those, do you remember those Smartwell cookies? Like, and things were starting to be low fat, low sugar, slim fast, Diet Coke, all those things. And kind of starting to pay attention to nutrition labels. And my mom was an aerobics instructor. And I kind of didn't realize like how all these little things were kind of influencing me. And I didn't really start forming any disordered eating or like body image stuff until really high school. And that's when some girls that I went to high school with, had eating disorders. A couple of them went away to rehab. And if you've had an eating disorder, you know how so contagious it is. It's just like, it's like a domino ripple effect. And so I guess like it really wasn't until probably the latter part of my senior year, that I had taught myself to throw up. So I had taught myself to purge. I remember being like so proud of that. This one girl who had an eating disorder, and this is so fucked up because some girls with eating disorder like exchange notes, like give each other tips.
Yeah.
And this one girl told me that she got a hold of Adderall. Like she just went to her pediatrician. She told him that she thought she had ADHD, had to answer a few very simple questions, and she was written this prescription to Adderall, which suppresses your appetite and boosts your metabolism and all these things.
Yep.
So I did the same. I told my mom that I thought I had ADHD. I gave her fed her some bullshit to get me to the pediatrician. Our pediatrician, my mom, is livid that how easy this was now. But I got Adderall. And then that just really kind of cascaded really into that summer, where the restriction binge purge cycle just started to get deeper and deeper. I started to, lose more weight, that I was hiding it in baggy clothes. I was supposed to go to OU, Oklahoma University, and like pledge for sorority and like all this stuff. I mean, I was getting ready to go, and like, I knew that I was getting sick. I knew that I was starting to lose some sort of control around all this. And about 2 weeks before I was supposed to go, I kind of like had this panic attack. And I told my parents, I was like, I just can't go. Like, I want to stay home and just try community college or something. And my parents told me later that was like such a relief to them that I came to them, because they knew that if they had sent me and I, pledged sorority and got into that I was like going to come home and just be like wasted away. So, but it still just started to get worse and worse. And this is why I started community college. And this is why I think commenting on anybody's weight, whether, a gain, but, for me, it was a weight loss, don't do it, because I was losing weight pretty rapidly and I was getting complimented on my weight loss. And so I was like, oh, like I should keep going. I look really great. So like, that's when I started to equate like thinness to looking good and to being healthy. And it was getting worse and worse. My hair was falling out and my parents started to get really concerned. So I agreed to go see a psychologist who specialized in, adolescents with eating disorders. And, anyway, she started to talk to me about going to inpatient treatment. And I would tell her over and over again, I would tell Amy over and over again, I'm not thin enough yet. I'm not sick enough yet. Like I might consider going if I get down to a certain weight or whatever. And Amy's like, it might be too late at that point. Like you need to go now. But I didn't want to go. And I told her, I said, I don't want to go to rehab because I'm going to be the fattest one there. Like I told her that. And, so that led to an intervention, and I don't have a lot of really good memories throughout this, like several months around that time, because I was just so mentally far gone and physically sick. But I had an intervention with my parents, and to my detriment, my parents had already booked me a rehab in Arizona. Like I was already going, so it wasn't a conversation. It was like they were telling me. And I was so mad. And my mom was a pediatric nurse, and she told me that there was a girl, a 16-year-old in the hospital from anorexia, like in cardiac arrest. Like she was dying. Like they knew that she was probably going to die. She was so far gone. And my mom was crying like hysterically. And she just said, I'm worried that's going to be you. And I told her, and what makes me so sick and really sad more than anything is I looked at her and I told her, at least I would die thin. And I meant it.
Yeah.
And so,
well, that's how this whole disease works. It's an obsession. It's, you can't even, it makes no sense. Like looking back on it now, you're like, what the hell? But in the time,
it makes no sense.
It made perfect
sense.
sense.
And so I went to, my original flight to Arizona was canceled and delayed because of snow, which we like never get in Texas. But we actually had bad weather. And so I remember laying on the couch for like however long it was before we could get a flight there. And I just starved myself because I was like, I am going to get down to the absolute lowest weight that I can before I go to treatment and they make me start eating. And I went to inpatient treatment in Arizona at Sierra Tucson. They were fantastic for 30 days. And then I thought I was going to go to rehab and be fixed. Like I thought it was going to be done in 30 days. It was going to be over.
Yeah.
And quickly realized it wasn't. And it really was rehab that I started to really realize like how far gone I was and how like I really did need help. I started having some heart palpitations my second week there, and I was really scared, and I was like, I don't want to die. Like I need to figure this shit out. So I actually went to outpatient in Florida for 4 months. So I was gone for a total of 5 months, and then came back. And I was 19.
Yeah.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Eye-Opening Moments podcasts are real-life stories of adversity, encounters, and perspectives. They are moments that can lift your spirits, give you some food for thought, or move you. For the introspective mind that likes to reflect, discover, and find solutions or meaning in a complex life, listen to Eye-Opening Moments podcasts.
Wow. Yeah. And then now how old are you now, if you don't mind?
I'm 40, so I'm in the 40s club now.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's almost been 20 years
it's been a little over 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since then. And do you feel like does that little voice of, whatever we want to call it, Ed,
yeah,
ever speak up, or do you feel like you have to push him back?
Yeah. I mean, I think those of us that have been down that road, and I think so many, I just like every single woman I feel like I have talked to has had some sort of struggle with body image and disordered eating at some point in their life, whether they were labeled with anorexia or bulimia or binge eating, like whether they had the label or not. And men do too, but like, especially with women, especially now. And it's like, I think those of us that have really gone through that depth are more susceptible to certain things. And I think it's quicker for us to fall into that like fucked up mindset. And then also, and even being callous to it. Like you just don't know, you don't even realize what's happening until something causes you to wake up and you're just like, what the fuck even happened?
Yeah. And for anyone listening, so I've talked about it on a previous podcast and stuff like that. So if you ever want to listen about like my history with that stuff, I call it disordered eating because I've never been labeled with anything, but I have literally done everything. Like I've starved myself. I was pretty damn good at that one. And Adderall, hells yes. That was so easy.
So easy. It's so easy to get. And
easy to get. And I swear, I think that's what made me get down to my lowest weight ever was because I just pop it in the morning, first thing in the morning, get it, and then be done. And I would live off of Adderall and like cups of coffee and oatmeal for days on end. And then I think, eventually my sister-in-law, because she was at college with me, she just noticed me and she called my brother, and my brother called my mom, and because I was out where they couldn't see and they're like, what the fuck is going on? But I've dealt with all of that, but same thing, like you really do fall into easy patterns again without always noticing it. And that's where I'm struggling right now. Like I would love to work out. Like yesterday I ran and it felt so good, but then I got off of the treadmill and I was like, oh, how do I do this correctly?
Yeah.
And that is like the thing that has always pained me is how do I proceed forward with anything and feel good about doing so? And I just said to my husband the other day, like and this is like just basic stuff. I feel like a pair of my shorts. I feel like my clothes are just a little too tight. I don't weigh myself anymore. I go based off of how my clothes feel.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, they don't feel comfortable. So I'm like, how do I do this right? Because I know myself so well that if I keep going or if I start working out, I know based off of past history, I will twist it. And that's exactly what I've done in the past. I think I really haven't worked out like tremendously since I had my third, because right before I got pregnant with her, I was incredibly unhealthy again. I knew I was stepping lower and lower and lower into that again. And it's so easy. It's so easy to fall back into because you don't even realize it.
And what's hard, and I remember being in rehab and being like actually jealous of like the heroin addicts because I was like, this shit is not fair. Like I was like, because you can't, we all have to eat and we all have to move our bodies. It's science. It's good for us, increases your lifespan, longevity, health, all the things. you can't use heroin in a healthy way. Like you have to get off of it. So it's like, heroin is like all or nothing. You have to get off of it and be clean. But like, I have to learn how to use food. I have to learn to move my body in a mindful way and not go down that road again. And that's why it is such a slippery slope. Like it's such a slippery slope. And it's, I got really into distance running for a while, and I liked it because it felt good. I thought it was meditative. I started with the best of intentions, and before I knew it, and again, I didn't even realize I was getting into this behavior. I would be like, awesome, I ran 20 miles today. I'm going to go to breakfast and gorge myself. And like that feeling of being very, very hungry is incredibly triggering for me. Like I start to get, it's not just hangry. Like I get like anxiety over it. And I didn't even realize I was starting to fall into that mindset again until a girl joined our running group. And she was very visibly like in the depths of her eating disorder. I mean, and she would show up in these tiny shorts and this little sports bra. And I wasn't sleeping. I was so stressed out. I had to start seeing my therapist like 2 times a week. I was having nightmares. And I was like, I have to step away from this. And like, I had met all my friends in this running community, but I was like, this is fucking me up. I'm quitting. Like, I have to walk away. And I didn't even realize that running was putting me into this again until I was hit in the face with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And running especially. I know so many runners that just literally run themselves into the ground. Like especially when I know distance runners, there are women that I know when I will still see them out running and they will have their knees bandaged up. They'll have their ankles bandaged up.
That was me.
Yep. They'll just keep going and going and going. And it's absurd, but it's addicting. That in and of itself is addicting, but all of it is. It's so hard to fit that into your life in a healthy way. And that's, the conversation that you and I had said we want to kind of twist this into. We can kind of use that as that, but everything that we've been modeled in our life going forward, and I think that's what makes it so difficult, is always, I mean, think about it. Like no one's ever showed weight loss outside of an aesthetic factor. We all know the science behind it. We all know how good it is for us, but we have never, like, think about it. What workout program have you been pushed where someone just looks healthy and not fit? If that makes sense. Like someone just looks normal and not like this aesthetically chiseled person. Yeah. It doesn't happen. So when I work out, that's all I think about is like, if I'm not working out to achieve this, then what the hell is the point? And that is so backwards. And on, going into the conversation that we wanted, we are so targeted for it. It's absurd to a point where it's like, how do you even escape it? It's just, it's hard. And I know, we kind of want to lead into postpartum moms. I'm sure you guys, I wish I could see how many people's hands raised because obviously you can't. But I would love to know how many people, if you guys can, come to Instagram and let me know how many of you have felt like you got targeted, especially postpartum, because I made a reel about it once where I did it like a White Chicks. I don't know if you know that movie White Chicks. I did like she was in the scene is where she's in the mirror and she's like pointing out all these little like parts.
I have something to say about that reel later, but that reel I saw that reel, Mary, and I have to say I started crying, and that was because it was about, how old is Haley? I feel like that reel was about a year ago.
Yeah, it was like when I was freshly postpartum, and it was about someone coming into my inbox and asking me about losing weight postpartum and how you feel afterwards. So it was like, I felt great. And it wasn't me like pointing out like things I didn't like, but it was like how an easy message like that
can be twisted,
can easily, triggering as fuck. And it happens so often that it's absurd. And I feel like social media, obviously, but it's these MLM shit. And I want to say that carefully because I sell Saint makeup, which technically is an MLM, but it's not the same.
No, it's not the same. And like, I remember seeing that reel, and it's like, again, and we're going to talk about this because I'm ready to talk about this now, but like I was a Beachbody coach, and I call myself a recovering Beachbody coach, but I saw that reel And that was there were a few things that kind of happened and cascaded, like all kind of culminated at the same time, that it felt like someone hit me in the chest and threw me back. And I saw what was in front of me and that I was doing this entire time. And I just couldn't see it again because I had kind of gotten callous to it. But I saw your reel and I remember being like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I always really watch my messaging to people, but I was like, who the fuck am I? I never talked about weight loss or anything like that. But again, it's those things that can be misconstrued because being postpartum, and I think being postpartum is like years after you had a baby. But being postpartum is inherently an incredibly vulnerable place to be in. Like, and anybody who tries to tell me otherwise is a liar. But to message those people anything is like, again, you just become self-conscious and stuff. And I remember seeing that reel, and that's one of the things that triggered me to start backpedaling and like realizing what I was doing and being like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Well, and I think, and how it is an incredibly vulnerable, it is. And there's actually a term for it. And it's called matrescence. So like that
I didn't know that.
change over. So like when you're in that postpartum period, it's called matrescence. And it is the physical, mental, emotional shift into motherhood. And it's like literally it is almost akin to puberty again. So if you think about how strong puberty is for teenagers and adolescents, it is the same exact thing for us again, because we are going through such a hormonal shift and a mental shift, just like how teenagers do when they go through puberty. And think at how risk teenagers are at like these messaging things. That's why teenagers, we have to be so careful with what we're saying to like youth and adolescents, is because of how at risk they are with this type of messaging. Same thing goes with moms, like, because we are just as vulnerable in that state of life again, because we are having to like almost reintroduce ourselves again and redefine ourselves again. And if someone comes in with another message saying like, this is how you should be, then we're going to take that as our definition, and it might not be true. And that's why for me, it drives me nuts, because it's, I call it bouncing forward. Like all of this shit is, I like to bounce forward. I hate the whole bounce back term. I think it's crap. I think some people get really angry.
You need
about
to get shirts made.
It's crap.
You need to get.
I actually have. I made a sweatshirt that says bouncing forward, but I want to like perfect it though, because I don't like the design as much anymore. But I'm gonna redo it. But it's true, and I remember I actually had that bouncing forward top on. I made a reel about it like last year after I was postpartum. And someone commented saying like, I disagree. You like the bounce back. Like, why should moms feel like they can't get back to where they should be? Like moms shouldn't have to feel like shit and things like that. And I'm like, that's not what this is saying. Like, this isn't saying that you can't get back to your postpartum weight. This isn't your, or your pre-baby weight. This isn't saying that you can't get back to your pre-baby self, any of that. Bouncing forward means that you are willing to put one foot in front of the other to keep going forward wherever that may lead you. But you don't look behind you. Who the hell wants to look behind? Like if I look at everything I've done in the past, that won't get me anywhere. I want to keep looking forward. And it's just the recognition that you're going to put a foot forward for yourself going into the future. And that's all it is.
They say this too. There's so many quotes and stuff about this, but as a mother, when your child is born, you are also born again. As a new person, you are forever changed just as a mother. And that's not, and people, when I start talking about that, people assume that I mean physical, which again, that's part of the problem, is because there's immediately that assumption that I'm talking about weight or being thin or your postpartum body or whatever. But it's like, you're just forever changed. Like it just changes you and molds you into this different person, which is why I like bounce forward and not bounce back. But
yeah, bouncing forward. You keep going forward. You got to, whatever that's going to bring in your life. I think it's just the thing that we have to keep looking. We're not looking backwards because we'll never be the same again. After you have kids, like I don't want to be my pre-baby self because my pre-baby self did not know as much as I do now. And I love myself now. It's just enough to like want to keep learning and keep exploring whatever that holds in the future. But Yeah, these companies. I mean, Beachbody, and again, if anyone here is a Beachbody coach, this is not like we hate Beachbody here or anything like that. I think at the end of the day, it's an awareness. So if you are someone that works for Beachbody, just be very aware as to what you're doing. I think it all boils down to bad leadership and bad tactics.
Well, and it's like, that's the thing too, is like, and I think it's with the marketing and the targeting. And it's like, and again, I want to be very careful and not go into like the business side of it, because everybody has their different experience. And this is not about me being anti-Beachbody or anti-MLM or anything like that. And like you said, it's the leadership. But you have these top leaders, and I signed up, I swiped up. I mean, I was 5 months postpartum. I was so uncomfortable in my clothes. It was also in the middle of the pandemic. We were facing a relocation. And I started following her on social media. I was following her for a really long time. And her before and after pictures was her before picture. And this is another part of the problem too. Those before and after pictures, and I know for a fact now after living through it, are smoke and mirrors, total bullshit. Like, you cannot post a before picture a few days after you're home from the hospital where you still look 6 months pregnant. Like, your abdomen is literally still swollen. You have just given birth to a human. And then the after picture of you holding your bouncy smiley baby with the 6-pack and stuff like that. But the thing is that's what sells. So like, money starts to come into that. Like, that's what sells. Like, me trying to sell somebody on mindful and intuitive movement and stuff like that and just feeling better is not going to sell over, I promise that you can lose 50 pounds.
We have been trained. Unfortunately, and I had a really great, I don't know if you've listened to it, but I had a doctor on in season 1, Dr. Ali Delosier. She is phenomenal. She's a psychologist, but she works with families in restructuring the way we look at food. Yeah. And she, like, when we did our conversation after we got off, after we ended our recording, I started crying because I was like, this was so cathartic, like, just to talk and because it's one of my biggest fears with, like, especially because I have girls, and I'm like, it's one of my biggest fears of passing this forward. And sometimes, like, I just don't even realize what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And that's where I get so scared where I'm like, I don't even, like we said, like, you just don't know that you're doing anything until all of a sudden you get smacked and you're like, oh, wait, this isn't good. But we talked about that. And she had said, diet culture has existed for this long. And the reason for it is diet culture isn't necessarily even targeting you. It's targeting your granddaughter. It's targeting future generations. It wants to not work. Like, if it worked and everyone's problems were solved and healed, it would be a one and done type of thing, but it's not. It is a thing that is a continuous spiral, and they want my business. They want my daughter's business, granddaughters, great granddaughters. That's the only way this is ever going to make money is by tricking us into continuing forward. And and we've been trained that way. So like, when we meet someone that is willing to teach us about, like, intuitive eating and how we view food and things like that, when we see that it's not working fast enough, or when we see that it's, not leading to, like, the perfectly chiseled abs or things like that, which not everyone has, by the way. And you have to, I worked with bodybuilders for a long time when I was a personal trainer. And I always, like, when I see people trying to, like, compete and try to achieve what a bodybuilder's like, I'm like, that's not realistic, right? But no one wants that. No one wants realistic things anymore because we've been sold the unrealism, and that's what sticks in our head.
And that's what I mean. And again, it just goes back to, like, that's what sells. So it's like, I signed up as a customer because I wanted to lose weight. Like, I didn't feel good and I wanted to lose weight. And, a few weeks in, I started to feel better. I mean, I just started to, but again, when you stop binging on, pretzels and you actually start moving your body a little bit, you're just going to feel better. I mean, it's brain science. So I was like, and I'm a Pilates instructor, and I hadn't been able to teach Pilates, like, in person really since pre-pandemic. I had been teaching virtually, but that itch hadn't really been totally scratched because I love teaching women, like, Pilates. So I was like, okay, like, this is my thread to pull. Like, this is how I can help women. So I signed up to be a coach, and I didn't really realize the team I was signing up for. I just thought I was signing up to coach. And it's like, So it's like you start with, I think so many women start this with the best of intentions. I really do truly think women start this because they really want to help. But I think it quickly turns into something it's not. And like, I didn't, so I really got into it, and I truly believe I was going to build this big business and stuff like that. And I posted the before and afters. I posted the pictures of me in my pre-baby shorts to try to sell this product, to get people to sign up with me. And then the things that I started to really like, I started to realize that like, I wasn't just like that I was triggering myself and others, was first of all, that reel that you did. And I was like, what message am I putting out there? Like, that's when I started to realize, like, what messages am I putting out there? Another woman who I didn't know. So, you know, quote unquote, cold market, right? She was following me on Instagram, and she reached out to me and she said, you know, Zoe, like, I have to tell you, I love your content. Like, I love how real you are. I think you're full of really great information, but I have to unfollow you because the before and afters are really triggering. And that right there, I never posted another before and after that, because I was like, that's when I really started to step back, because I was like, okay, I am posting shit that didn't used to just trigger me. It triggers me now, and I'm triggering other people. So I started to talk to my therapist more about it. And that's when I was like, okay, fuck this. Like, I'm not doing this out there. I want to change the message that I'm putting out there. And, you know, big surprise, I stopped selling it. I stopped signing people up because nobody wants to sign up with somebody that can't promise them this thinness. And then I didn't really realize how triggering it was for me, and how it really had started to really mess with my mind, when it's just like you're constantly comparing as a coach, especially on a very competitive top team. And again, whether it's Optivia, Plexus, or whatever, like whatever. Again, this is not making generalizations about the company or Beachbody coaches or whatever. Yeah, it is. And it's just, and then as a coach, you know, you're told that your transformation is your business and your success as a business. You got to get those before and afters. You got to show people that this, you know, to be a product of the product and that this works. But then you start picking yourself apart as a coach. Like, you start, oh my God, like so-and-so, we launched this new program and so-and-so lost 3 pounds last week, but I gained 1. What is wrong with me? And I started thinking, like, is this just me? Like, it must be just me because of my history or whatever. So I started backpedaling until I eventually quit. But I recently posted, since the last time you and I spoke, I posted a couple reels about why I left Beachbody, why I want to change the message that's being put out there. And a couple of the reels did very well. And I can't even count how many women messaged me that I didn't even know, messaged me that they were a Beachbody or Optivia coach, that they had quit, that they had formed eating disorders from stuff that they were told to do because of their business. I had customers reach out to me, and of all of that, of all the comments I got, I only got one bitchy negative comment from somebody. And she was an active Beachbody coach she was trying to sell. And it's just like, and these women are like, I formed an eating disorder. Like, I had to get help. I had to go to therapy. Like, I had to go to a dietitian and unlearn everything that I had taught myself. And I'm struggling. And it's like, and that's what it is. And it's just like, I think too, whether you're a Beachbody coach, Optivia coach, a personal trainer with your own company or whatever, as leaders, and I say this too as a Pilates instructor, and I'm becoming a certified intuitive eating counselor and like nutrition counselor, because it's just, I think as leaders, whatever you call yourself, whether you're a Beachbody coach, Optivia coach, a personal trainer, Pilates instructor, yoga instructor, we are considered leaders in this culture. And you, just like you said earlier, you have to watch your messaging. Like, you have to watch your messaging.
And not even all of those people, not even all of these coaches or anything. anyone right here, especially if you guys are listening and you have an Instagram or a social media, be careful with the messaging you're putting out. It doesn't matter how many followers you have. Doesn't matter who you think is seeing your stuff. Be careful with what you're putting out. Like for me, I don't do what I eat in a day. I never will. I will never share what I eat in a day because my body is my body and what I eat is different. And to be fairly honest, I've been really shitty with my eating lately, and I will be fully honest on that one. But it's these things that you want to be careful of how be careful of how you're speaking to yourself and how that, transcends, because someone could hear you, you could pick yourself apart and someone could literally hear and be like, I don't, or I look like that, or I look like that and she doesn't like the way that looks. So that must mean that I look like shit or things like that. So you have to be very careful, or, it's just anyone that has a voice, which is everyone, needs to be very careful as to what we are saying. And I think that's where that shift needs to start coming in, is like us getting away from the intricacies of it, especially like, I always say, like, we don't have to talk about food. Like, no one has to talk about food. You can share like a really great meal, but you don't have to share how much you ate. No one gives a shit. Everyone is their own person. They can figure out how much is going to be appropriate for them in that meal. You could share what you're eating, like what dinner you're cooking, but you don't have to share like, I've only had a cup. Like, who cares? Like, no one gives a shit. You don't have to do that. Or you don't have to be like, I worked out for an hour today. Okay. Don't have to share that. You do what you want to do. Everyone will figure out what their thing is. Everyone needs to, there's so much work that needs to get done. This is such like a rabbit hole. And I think just especially for us moms, it's and I actually am remembering what we talked about like when we tried recording the last time, and we recorded. And I think beforehand I had actually gone to my stories and I had posted up different things and whatnot. And I have to go back in because I never ended up doing it. But I remember going through and asking where people had gotten their body dysmorphia or eating disorders from. And I want to say about 80 to 90% of the answers all were from their mom and how they saw their mom or important women in their life modeling that.
Oh, that's right. That was women our age before social media. Yeah.
Yes. Before social media. So again, that's a different ballgame, but like millennials before we had this, because social media really only blew up within the last 10 years. So it's like we had to deal with so much other shit, but it's all come from us. But I think it still stands true. I think social media is a big pinnacle, but I think moms, we have kids. Like your sons are at risk. My daughter and son are at risk. Like all of that is at risk. And if we can't tackle it first within us, it is never good.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, and just like you said, it's generational, right? So it's like if you fall into fad diet culture and you have this attachment to thinness and you start placing this morality on your food and morality on exercise and have these labels of good and bad and valuing thinness and size and stuff like that, you're passing that down to your kids, and then they're going to pass it down to their kids. And it's just, it has to stop. And I'd like to say that I'm hopeful, and I am, but it is so hard. And it's just, and again, like what you said, it's just, you have to watch your messaging and how it's construed out there, because I have people in my Facebook and Instagram feed right now that are talking about like, and these are either coach friends of mine or other friends that aren't even a coach that are just like pregnant or newly postpartum. And they're talking about, they're placing a number on the amount of weight that they gained pregnant. Or they're currently pregnant and they're saying, I've already gained 30 pounds and I cannot wait to get back to it and lose this baby weight and come join me for this postpartum group. But it's like, how is that being taken in by a vulnerable new mom or a very pregnant mom? I promise you somebody is standing in front of the mirror feeling shitty about themselves because of what you posted. And that's why I was
because we're telling everyone that we need to get back to where they are. So I guarantee when I had Haley, I think this was probably my healthiest postpartum, like in terms of like mentality, because I think I just knew going in, but I was okay about like going out and buying a bigger jean size and like going and buying these things for myself, as opposed to like beating myself up over the pairs of pants that I have in my closet that I was like, I'm never going to fit back into them. And guess what? Because I didn't focus on it, I did.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't like, I feel like sometimes the stress that we place on certain things actually creates the event itself. But I just kind of was like, this is how my body is. And maybe it was because it was the third time around and I saw how much of a roller coaster that is. And I also realized how long it takes. Like I am almost next, come February, I'll be 2 years postpartum. I'm only 16 months postpartum. I'm still postpartum. Like you're still postpartum. Like you said, it's a long time, but like my body is still slowly coming together. Like I'm finding that like certain things are changing. Like my core is slowly coming together. So I can like see a difference in my body and how my waist looks and how things fit. Like it's just a long process. But again, we're so vulnerable because we don't know it. We've never been through it. And not many people have been open enough to be like, hey, this is how it goes. And it's going to be for a while. Like it's not just some short term, you pop a baby out and it's going to be fixed in a month. It's like, no, you took 9 months to build a baby. It's going to take 9 months plus more to put it all back together because it's a huge ass event and it's an incredible event. And I think sometimes that's where we get lost because we forget like the magnitude of what the hell we just did.
And I think you're so good at sharing that, like especially since having Haley, because that's when I started following you when you were like about to have Haley. But like I think especially even not as leaders in the health and fitness industry, but leaders on this platform, like on social media, like I mean you have like there's 140,000 people who have their eyes on you. And so it's like I think it's also important, whatever message you're putting out there, like I think you do such a good job of showing women like what the actual reality is and like the struggles. And so it's like people, I think it's so easy to see those like health and fitness models and influencers and stuff and like think that something's wrong with us. Like what is wrong with me? But then they follow somebody like you, or Libby or some of the other ones that it's like, okay, there isn't anything wrong with me. Like how I'm feeling is correct. Like I'm not alone in this. And I have to say too, to the people out there who are the followers is like, filter your fucking feed. If something out there is making you feel shitty, if you are picking yourself apart by something, or even if like, I mean, shit, like if I don't care if you unfollow me, if I'm doing something, and I try to be very careful about what I put out there. But like you even said one time, like you recently mentioned, like, I forgot to eat this morning or whatever, but like, that's just a reality for moms in my opinion. But somebody commented and said like, hey, that can be triggering or whatever. And you even said like, please unfollow me. Like, I am so sorry if I did that. That wasn't my intention. But like, filter your feed. Like, stop following these.
I'm not. Well, and that's the thing. You're not responsible. I'm not responsible for people's feelings. At the end of the day, I'm not. But you also, we're all different. Everyone's going to have a different trigger. Like something you could say might trigger someone because of an experience that they had. Everyone has their own thing, but I think it's important to be cognizant. Like, that was because I brought up, like, I checked in and I was like, have you had food today? Have you had water? I was a little kind of caught off guard on why that was triggering. Cause I'm like, I'm just making sure people eat.
Me too. Cause I forget to eat as a mom. Yeah.
It's fine. And I was like, I'm not going to argue it. I didn't go back to her and be like, you're wrong. Like, I was like, I'm so sorry that happened, but I'm not going to stop doing it because the things that I say out loud on my feed a lot of the times are actually for myself. Like, I talk to everyone, but it's really for me as like a way to work through things. And I'm fully honest, like, I have been really bad with eating, and not in terms of like eating shit food, in terms of not eating at all. Like, I have been really, really, really bad. And I finally just said to Kev, I think this is my second day in a row of like, I'm tracking food again in order to keep myself accountable to eat, because if I don't, I won't. And I can tell, again, it's that mindset of really fucked up eating stuff that I can tell I didn't even realize until I started noticing like the negative implications of it, of, I feel run down, and when I do eat, finally it's eating shit, like, because I'm so hungry and then I'm angry and it's not healthy. So, it's just one of those things that will live with me forever, which I hate.
Yeah. And I hate too. And it's like, I like to connect to other moms, like one of my neighborhood mom friends that lives down the street from me. Like, we have gotten to be really quick, fast friends. because she also went to rehab when she was 19 for an eating disorder. And it's just, it's like, it's nice to connect to other moms like you and, other women who get the fucked upness, if that's a word, of that mindset and and help each other out. But like my final advice is if you are a leader, watch what you put out there, but also if you're a follower, like filter your feed. If somebody's hurting you,
unfollow, mute. It's easy to do.
Yeah.
We're not going to notice. We're not going to notice. We'll be okay. Do it for your own self-good because it's social media. Majority of it's not real. It really isn't. At the end of the day, it really is not reality. You can try your darndest to show reality, but you're still never going to see the full picture. And that's just the way it goes. So
it was. I'm kind of glad we had to re-record. I have to be honest.
Yeah, me too. Usually that always happens. I feel like that always happens. Whenever I've ever hit a snag and we re-record again, I'm like, wait, this has gone better this time. So perfect. I'm going to link Zoe and everything in my show notes. That way you guys can head on over and follow her. Please do. Because like I said, fill your feed with people that are going to encourage you because it really is, you should feel like surround yourself with people that feel good and that inspire you and don't make you feel like shit because you shouldn't. You're amazing. So awesome. Thank you, Zoe.
Yeah, thank you.
Another episode down. Thank you all so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, I would be so appreciative if you would leave a rating and review. I cannot begin to tell you how much those mean to me, but also how much they help me get in front of more eyes and more ears. As always, be sure to check back every Tuesday and Friday for a new episode, whether it's an episode with me and my husband, me and Katie, or just another incredible, amazing guest. Stay tuned for more honest, real, raw chit chat. And hey, do me a favor before you go. Remind yourself how amazing you are, how enough you are, how special you are. And boy, oh boy, I sure am glad to have you here. Thanks, friend.